Ladies and gentlemen, the World Cup draw takes place this Friday. Christian Jack will be headed there, and we at One Soccer will be hosting a live watch-along. It is something unlike anything else in sports. It is the most viewed event that doesn't actually feature a match. People from around the world cannot wait to see who their nation will be playing, who their second nation will be playing, who their rivals will be playing. Are they stuck in the group of death? All of that to be decided on Friday. KJ, as the man in the crew who's going to be at the Kennedy Center, I want to ask you what you are looking most forward to from the draw.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure if I'm going to be in the Kennedy Center.
Yeah, they're going to let you in.
I am going to DC. Last I checked, I think is Zone 6. So, nice. Hey, I'll be in the DC area. We'll see where they put me. So that'll be great. No, I'm really excited. There's nothing better for me in terms of anticipating what's coming next in the game than a World Cup draw, because that's what it's all about, is that we've got literally billions of people watching the event, wondering what their country is going to get next. And that's so exciting about it, is the anticipation. Yes, it's the greatest competition in sports. It's the biggest competition in sport. And right now in my brain, we've basically got like 72 stadiums ready to fill, where we need 2 teams playing and fans from all the colors of the world. And we don't know exactly where they'll be until Friday when it happens. So that's what's exciting for me, as someone who's been on the end of it, and a blessing to cover many of them as a media member, but also as a fan. Like, I've been on the other end of it. I've had tickets for games to go to a World Cup, not knowing who those teams would be until that draw come. And I remember that time I couldn't sleep that night before. So I think about fans as well, because it's all about the fans, this sport. So that's what excites me.
Jordan?
It's the preparation, right? KJ kind of alluded to it. What it will touch on is, like, you can start dreaming from a Canadian perspective, being a fan of this game, but just anyone on the streets knowing that, okay, this beautiful tournament, this beautiful game is coming to Toronto, to Vancouver, coming to North America. Now you can start planning, seeing, okay, who's in Canada's group? What are their chances? Like, I think even for someone like Jesse Marsh, who can plan for everything, now this is where the buck drops. You start to see, okay, this is where you want to be in 6-7 months. This is who you're going to get as an opponent. This is what we want to play. So all these things are nice. But yeah, I think it's a who's who. KJ, you said Zone 6. Just find a way to wiggle around as well, because the legends are going to be there. That's what I find great about this event, is that obviously people that have played in the World Cup. I just came back from a flight from Barbados with my family, and I had a Wi-Fi on the plane. And I watched the 2006 quarterfinals of Brazil and France, because those, like, it had every one of, like, my idols in one game. I realized the football wasn't the greatest. I was 20 years ago, I thought it was fantastic, but it actually wasn't. But again, all those legends, or a lot of those legends, will probably be in Washington, D.C. So it's just beautiful, because the whole football world kind of stops, gets together, and that's the event. So KJ, if you have any room in your carry-on, it's still flexible. I can press into your bag and make sure I'm there.
Well, we know who Canada cannot be drawn with. That's because they're in pot 1. We don't know the entirety of the World Cup field just yet. There are some European qualifiers and interconfederation playoffs to come. All of those nations who could get through would be in pot 4. So it's entirely possible that Canada sees one of those TBDs still. But when you look, Jordan, at the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th pots, and so many football supporters and pundits right now are doing the draft lotteries online, who might Canada get paired with? I suppose the question I want to ask is, more than anyone, who does Canada want to avoid, Jordan?
For me, I'm just going to go by the last tournament with Croatia and Morocco. Like, I understand that this is a different squad, and I understand that 4 years a lot can happen, and Canada has grown a lot since that time. But you look at that group, I remember with Belgium, Croatia, and Morocco, everyone was thinking Croatia and Morocco were 2nd and 3rd possibly on that list or in that group. And they made a run to go to the semifinals. I think for Canada, you want someone different, you want someone fresh. You don't want to go play the same teams. We have situations where John Herdman was saying expletive Croatia. You don't want to go back there. You want to maybe get something totally new and different and fresh. But I look at the other teams, KJ and pot 2. I mean, I don't know who I would choose out of these to go and play. But again, I would want to avoid Croatia and Morocco for sure, just off of recency bias.
Yeah, I can see that. I think Colombia, for me, is the strongest team in that pot. I think there's a lot to like about them, going back to Copa America, playing again in the North American market when they went to the final. I know Canada just played them, but they didn't play their best team in that game either. So we didn't see the best of Colombia that day. Pot 2 is scary. You could make a case for every team. A lot of the teams for me, okay, maybe when you get down a little bit towards Iran, Australia at that point, but we're asking a question, who do we not want to play? I think there's some of those teams there for me. The other thing too is that I think Canada's been quite fortunate to play the Pot 2 team in the third game. We'll get into that later, but I think that plays a factor into this in terms of I would answer that question differently if I thought that was the team that they were playing first. As it is, they're not.
Pot 3 contains Norway, Panama, Egypt, Algeria, Scotland, Paraguay, Tunisia, Cote d'Ivoire, Uzbekistan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and South Africa. KJ, from that dozen, who is perhaps the dirtiest?
This is the opposite of Pot 2 for me. I don't have a worry about many teams, to be honest. I think obviously Norway are the strongest side, in my opinion, in the group. But what they lack is tournament experience. They haven't been to a tournament since 2000. They've got a lot of strong players. They're a technical side. Obviously, Haaland, Odegaard. I think they would be the team to avoid. Look, but as I said, I don't think Canada would fear anybody in Pot 3. I actually enjoy that pot from an opponent's point of view. But probably looking through it with some of the weaker teams in there, it would be a missed opportunity if they drew Norway, Jordan. That would be my pick.
Yeah, definitely the biggest one, Norway. I mean, a lot of this too, I can't really back with data, but it's just feelings. Algeria, I for some reason, I just don't want to play them. Like as a Canadian fan and covering them, I just could see going against Algeria just being a match that is rough and it doesn't really favor Canada when you look on the pitch. However, I feel like they would absorb a little bit of that press that Canada is known for now. But again, this is tournament football. Like it's slim margins. You have to be your best on the day. But KJ's right. I mean, I always say every time I watch the World Cup that I'm always looking for like a Senegal or Ghana or Ivory Coast team to make a run and make a push. Senegal kind of did well the last World Cup in 2022. Ivory Coast, as of late, again, I was talking to you guys about 20 years ago, watching certain players like the Didier Drogbas and the Yaya Tourés from Ivory Coast or Cote d'Ivoire. That's not a team I would like to play, but I still think Canada could handle it. I really do. It's just Norway is the one that really would keep me up at night, to be fair.
Okay, pot 4 is where things get really interesting because half the pot is still TBD and won't be known until the playoffs end on March 31st. Very quickly, Italy versus Northern Ireland, Wales versus Bosnia-Herzegovina, and then there's a final amongst those teams. I'll go through quickly. Ukraine, Sweden, Poland, Albania, Turkey, Romania, Slovakia, Kosovo. I feel like that Mickey Mouse cartoon going through the atlas. Denmark, North Macedonia, Czechia, Republic of Ireland, and then the Interconfederations, New Caledonia, Jamaica versus Congo DR in the final there, Bolivia, Suriname, or Iraq. Those are the clubs that are still up in the air, along with Jordan, Cabo Verde, Ghana, Curacao, Haiti, and New Zealand. Okay, KJ, I think I just listed half of the world. Who would you be wanting to avoid there?
Well, there's only 8 teams, those options that Canada can get, because you can't play a CONCACAF team. So it takes away the FIFA playoff rankings. So we're essentially looking at the 4 European pathway teams and then one of Ghana, Cape Verde, New Zealand, and Jordan. So, like, we can't really identify what those 4 look like right now from the UEFA teams. I just don't want to play any of them. Can I just say that?
Right. That's fair.
Is that okay? Because it's the first game, and no matter who it is, they're going to be savvy. They're coming from Europe, which is a very difficult pathway to get to the World Cup. And I don't think they're going to be intimidated by playing Canada in a host game. Well, I think you can make the case in some of the other ones. So I'll say that. And then of the other 4 that I mentioned, I don't want Ghana. I just don't want them. They're just too good. They're some really good players. So any of the other 3, if I'm allowed to be greedy, Jordan.
I'll allow it.
No, fair. I'll piggyback off of what KJ's putting down, my big bro out here. I don't want to play a first game where it doesn't feel like Canada's a home team. That's Ghana. That's Italy. Like, no. The amount of Ghanaian people that I know as well, like they're going to Black Star. They're born in Canada, have grown up here. It does not matter. And we saw a little bit as well with the friendly with Ecuador. And I chose to sit with the fans, and I literally felt Ecuadorian. I was looking around, I was like, this is what BMO could do. It could just turn. So Italy, Ghana, like these type of countries that are obviously, there's so many people that have come from there that live in the GTA, that live in Toronto, that live in Canada. when it comes to the day of cheering for Canada or cheering for their native land, they're going to their native land all day long. So Canada, the biggest thing with the World Cup, you see when you went to, I think you were in South Africa, no, KJ, but like
No,
seeing
I wasn't
you
there.
were. Okay, it's wheels. But you see everyone, they kind of just conform and get behind their team. Canada might not get that advantage based on who they get in pot 4. And I just think that would be a travesty. And it's not going to change. Like, people are ready to see this World Cup, but they're going to support their native land.
This is Canada after all. Yeah. KJ, you mentioned something a little earlier. I want to pull on that thread just a bit more. So Canada will open their tournament against pot 4. If you look at the rankings, that is in theory the lowest ranked opponent. Now, there's a conversation to be had about how the playoffs work, and perhaps there's a way to get those European nations that come through the playoffs further in the tournament. This is not the time for that conversation. But the conversation that I would like to have is a question of whether it's better on paper to open your tournament against the lowest ranked seed. You can argue you get your win, you get your point, you get your result, or do you want someone maybe that's going to battle test you right out the gates, KJ, and set you up for what Canadians will be hoping is a long World Cup run?
Great question. Normally I would say hard opponent, battle tested, let's face the difficult one first. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime World Cup for Canada. They're hosting games. I don't know if we're ever going to see that when we're on this planet, this wonderful world again. I don't think we're going to see it. So we get to have this chance now once in a lifetime, right? Canada gets to have this chance once in a lifetime. I'm actually really nervous to this point, because for me, it's like, what is the goal? Now, this is a country, as we know, that has never won a World Cup game, has never had a thought of getting out of a group, really. And now we're going into this World Cup where it's like, we should be thinking about trying to get out of the group and winning it. But to speak right now when we've never won a game is very difficult to speak of that way. But imagine if we play the first game at home against the weakest opponent you can imagine and win that game. That conversation flips right away, because suddenly you've got 3 points. The facts are the facts. I've looked at you're basically looking at the ratios of the 1986, 1990, and 1994 World Cup, where you're eliminating a percentage of teams, 33% of the teams after the group stages. It's a lot easier to get in the knockout stages of this kind of format of the World Cup than it has been in the last few times. They're playing 70% of the games to knock out 33% opponents. Canada needs to get into that knockout stages, no matter what it is. But why can't we dream about them winning the group and getting a game in Vancouver? So that's why I want 3 points on the 12th of June in Toronto against an opponent that I would like them to beat, rather than the most difficult opponent first. And then suddenly you're playing behind it, and then the conversation switches to, they may squeak in as a third place team. And then the conversation and the momentum is very different. That's how I would answer it.
I get where you're coming from, KJ. I do. And most people would think like that. I think about tournament experience that I personally have, but then I also think about the last World Cup. And I got texts from Denmark, England about, oh my goodness, this Canadian team, how they played Belgium, but just couldn't score, right? Like the way they attacked that game. And you could argue that Belgium on paper was the best team in the group. I mean, you could say Croatia, but regardless, Belgium going into that ended up being the barometer for Canada. So I understand everything going into this once in a lifetime type of competition, but I just know from watching World Cups, and KJ, you've been to a lot of them, I think teams around the second, third game are way better, way more, they're acclimated than they are in the first one. Give me the best team first. Get a result, get a goal, get a draw, get something on the table, and then you can build from that and grow. And I totally get it. This is one of those things I think it would actually be a 50-50 split if we did a poll, and I think that we should. Because a lot of people are like, you know what, you want to get the first one out of the way. This is why I eat my vegetables first. I don't eat them with my steak and my mashed potatoes. I just eat them, get that out of the way, try to get a point, and then you build off of that. Because Canada, with the talent that they have in this team, you're expecting goals, you're expecting some points, but what if they go and play the best team and they get a win? What if you do that off the rip? And then you're kind of looking at it like, okay, if this is how we can play and this is what we can do at this tournament, then maybe you're winning and making it first out of the group. So that team's going to get better who they play first, for sure, as the tournament progresses. But I just kind of like getting them out of the way early on.
Okay, gentlemen, back to the Atlas. So that's who Canada maybe wants to avoid. But when we take off the maple leaf tinted glasses for a moment and just look at the tournament at large, it's one of the subplots of all of these World Cups. It's one of the best things to watch. You adopt a team, an underdog, a sweetheart, a Cinderella, a black horse, pick your synonym for it. From the 48, who is perhaps the nation that the world at large, Jordan, might not be taking seriously enough or sleeping on?
It's tough. It's really tough. A team that isn't talked about that I kind of addressed is Senegal. And I talked about this the last World Cup because I really enjoyed watching them play. But again, everyone in pot two, if you even look at it, with like Croatia, Morocco, Colombia, Uruguay, Switzerland, Japan, there's teams that you go through and you're like, okay, you can see them making a run. People sleep on Senegal every single time. And I said it last World Cup, and maybe I was 4 years premature, but I truly believe this time, this is why I don't want Canada to be in the pot with Senegal. I really believe Senegal is going to make a run this tournament. And again, we'll see in 7 months if I'm right. But usually, Jenko, outside of Valor finishing third, usually I'm up there with my predictions and my picks. So let's see if this comes to fruition.
KJ.
I've got a few. I think I don't think there'll be a sleeper. In fact, they're going to be overhyped. But I don't think people understand. I think the US will do better than people think.
Yeah.
From pot one. I really like Japan. And I think they could go quite far in this tournament. I don't believe that they've won a knockout game. I was at the last game in Qatar when they lost on penalties to Croatia, and they dominated that game, and they just didn't have the savviness. You think about they played Belgium in the last 16 in last 16 in Russia, and they led 2-0, and they lost 3-2. They didn't have the savviness. I think they've got that. I think they're almost a complete team, and they play very different. They got left footers, and they just the patterns of play that they play. I would not want to play them. So that's from that part. Other sleepers, Paraguay are not a very good team in terms of with the ball, but they could be really annoying. And they've got Gustavo Alvaro, who was Ecuador manager. I won't want to pick them in pot three. I think they could be a grind it out 0-0 game for Canada that I would try and avoid if I was Canada for them. And if they get there, I like Turkey. I think they're really dangerous. I know everyone's talking about Italy to the team to avoid, but I won't want to get picked against them. They're a really, really smart team with a lot of good footballers who played a lot of international football. So, some of those are a bit more sleepers than some of the bigger teams.
Okay, you two stop me if I'm wrong. And Jordan, I'm going to ask you how far along I am on the Wilden scale right now. And maybe
I can't wait for this.
I've got some memories of Mitch Duke and what he did to me as a football supporter last year. I'm just saying, are we looking at pot two and just completely discrediting Australia? Like, they took Argentina, to 2-1 in the knockout stages last year. I know there's turnover with coaches and everything, but I just feel like that's the one in pot two where I'm like, they're going to upset somebody and make somebody's tournament so complicated, especially when half of them get in.
You're not far off. Like, I pick one, but South Korea, Australia as well. Like, again, you just, those two. So you're not off. There's some things you say, Jenko, I'm like,
it's true.
We watch the same games. There's no way you really believe that. But this one, I could definitely, I'm picking up what you're putting out.
I'll counter that differently. And all my Aussie friends, you've got me on cricket. All right, you're beating us in the Ashes. Enough. It's going to be another mauling. I get it. But I don't fear them in the World Cup. And if Canada get Australia in the World Cup out of that pot, personally, I would be happy. I know what they did to Canada in Montreal, but they're a difficult team to break down. And let's hope lightning doesn't strike twice if that happens again.
Join KJ and I later as we break down the Rugby World Cup draw, Australia, New Zealand. Anyone
got me out of that.
Save that for a little later on. Okay, so we know that this World Cup is complicated for a lot of reasons logistically with the size of the competing nations, But what makes it interesting, or at least another dash of spice from FIFA, is that there has been some guidelines, some restrictions, some guardrails. I'm just trying to name the right word, and I still don't know that I've had it, but this is what they've done. FIFA are going to split up the top 4 sides in the world so that they cannot meet before the final. KJ, does this take away from the draw, given that there is this little bit of manipulations, maybe the word, or does it make sense as a viewer, as a football supporter, that you're ensuring that one side of the bracket isn't that top heavy?
Don't like it. I know I'm an old man. Manipulation is a really good word. And, I grew up waiting for draws like this but I also don't like seeding in draws full stop, like Canadian Championship, European Champions League, like enough of the seeding. Like, can we just throw all the names in a hat and have an FA Cup draw? Like, that would be great. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but so if I had my way, I'd be like France and Argentina could be in the same group, lads, to be fine. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't finish in the top 3 of your group and get through and have a battle, I'm not, you're not good enough anyway. So I don't like it at all. I understand why they're doing it, and I think why they're doing it is because what they have underestimated with the new World Cup of 48 teams is there really a need to win it, the group? Like, if you're a big team, like, you could look at a pathway right now, depending on this group. And by the way, I've got it here, but there's certain groups that play a second place team in the next round if you win the group, and certain groups that play a third place team. So it depends on what group number you actually get, letter you get set associated to as well. So they have got to try and incentivize teams to go out and win the group. And to Jordan's point earlier about like maybe resting players, whatever, like, in this format, like, do you really need, if the heat's really an issue, do you really need to go out there and win all 3 games? Top 3 get through in your group, you're going to be okay. So it's like, and after that, you're into a last 32 knockout football. So I think if you're the best team, you back yourself in that regard, whoever you're playing. So they're manipulating it a little bit to say, well, if you win your group, then you don't have to be on the same side as Argentina. And so in England versus France and different things like that. So that's probably why they're doing it, but I'm not a fan.
I want to say it's a complete conspiracy theory, but just hear me out, guys. And you could tell me if I'm off brand. But if Spain finishes first and Argentina finish first, and they go through all the gauntlet and they play, that's the final, right? Spain against Argentina. For me, when I look at certain things, it's the same in basketball, and I'm not going to get into that as well. But I feel like people orchestrate what things could be if everything goes according to plan. And seeing Lamine Yamal potentially slaying Lionel Messi, or the storylines of Argentina being the 3rd team to win back-to-back World Cups, and they're the team to beat France to stop them from doing that in the last World Cup. All these stories feel like, to me, there's an influence of how they want to do brackets and how they want to have things done. And for me, that's the clearest thing. Like, when I went through the math, I'm like, okay, Spain finishes first and Argentina finishes first. They meet in the finals if they get through everything. I'm like, that's enough for the people, the people that are kind of drawing the strings and making things happen, to be like, okay, this is what we want. We want the new big dog on the block to play the best player that's ever played. And if they win their group, this is what happens if that happens. But again, I'm with KJ. I'm old school. I kind of like the just whoever you're going to play, you play. And like how things were maybe 20 years ago is pure. But I'd never think even 48 teams. But there's also great storylines with that too. So I'm trying to get on board.
But yeah, the great thing about this to me is that the games will dictate the stories anyway, right?
True.
It's like, you know the great saying, we all make plans and God laughs. Well, FIFA can make plans and then football laughs. Ultimately, they will decide and dictate, and I guarantee something's going to happen. No matter how many seeds you put wherever you want, we could get another 3rd place team get to the last 4 or get to the final, like has happened in '86 and '94 to '94. So it's very possible. So
look at Saudi Arabia and Argentina. Like, look at the start of the last World Cup. Like, there's always those, KJ. Like, I'm sure you could list off more than I can remember, but every year,
game, right?
It's just so.
And it is at that point on Friday I will allow countdowns to start becoming something that I actually pay attention to, because this event is the starter's pistol. There's no doubt about it. Lastly today, Jordan, I know you consume a lot of media. Heck, you get the Wi-Fi on the plane instead of just unwinding. The guy is plugged in. What you've inevitably seen is that there are some outlets, and it's not singling one or two of them out, from around the world, and maybe there's some sour taste from Qatar still left over or what have you. But when other nations are doing this style of conversation that we're having right now, the answer that a lot of people are picking for who do you want out of pot number 1 is Canada. Interesting when you consider how Canada has fared in recent matches against their CONCACAF rivals, but fair, I suppose, when you look at the historical track record. The question is simply, has Canada not proven themselves to be a bit of a tougher out, if not a tournament horse, than perhaps some of these other footballing nations are giving them credit for?
Yeah, I don't know if it has to do with that. I just think it has to do with the fact that they've scored 1 true goal at a World Cup, and they still haven't won a game. So I think people, obviously we watch every moment, we consume so much of this Canadian team, and we feel like as believers or as the media that they can go and make a run. But the fact of the matter is that the other teams have. The other teams have done it. Like USA, even though things aren't great right now for me, they've done it. They've gone to. I remember watching them probably 2 decades ago when they were like their team make it to the round of 16, and just like the way they played, they've done it. So you could say like they have the barometer. They know what to expect. Canada is still the team that needs to get that first win. They're still the team that needs to make it out of the group. To KJ's point, it's way easier now than it's ever been for them to go and do that. And maybe they get a bit of fortune and they play a team that they should be, like a Jordan or Cape Verde early, and they get the 3 points and they start feeling themselves cool. But as of right now, they're still underdogs. What I will say, and I hope that this part gets clipped, is that they got to flip that energy. Be an underdog. I love that. Be a team that people are like, you know what, can't have talented players, but I don't think it's going to work out. Or I don't think that they're a team that we want to flip that energy. The Tajon Buchanans, the Jonathan Davis, the Alfonso Davis, all those players on the team, I think it's great that you remind them to have a chip on their shoulder. Still play with a level head, but flip that energy, because I think it's beautiful for Canada to host a World Cup and to be an underdog. That just plays into a story of a deep run in this tournament. But when there's expectation, or you're expecting them to get 3 points, or expecting them to dominate a certain team, for me, I just feel like there's a bit of murky water. So I get why other people or other nations are saying that. But again, to the Canadians, if you're listening, the players that actually make the difference, flip that energy. Who cares if they doubt you? You soak that in and you rearrange that for good.
Yeah, the draw will dictate, right? Once the draw happens, it will dictate whether Canada should be considered a favorite, contender, dark horse, whatever it be. But right now, if you're another country, you would want them. And I think, to Jordan's point, that's okay too. Like, embrace that. Like, they underestimate us, and they will underestimate us right now, because they'll be like, they're looking at the other countries and like, well, why would you want to play any of the South American or European Goliaths? You wouldn't want to do that. So that takes like a lot of them. Okay, that comes to the host teams. Mexico wouldn't want to go there. You got to think about climate. You know, Canada's playing 2 games in Vancouver, climate control. So, like, if you're a European team, would you rather go play in the heat of Mexico City, or would you rather play in Vancouver, regardless of your opponent? You want to play in Vancouver. So for me, I understand exactly why they want to play Canada, and then it'll be up to Canada to show them that to regret that kind of hope. You think about the US, I wouldn't want to go there and necessarily get that group either, but once Canada is drawn, everybody's going to want them. It's going to go A, B, and then everyone's going to go, oh, we didn't get Canada? Okay, let's hope we get the US so we don't get Spain or we don't get Argentina. So it just flips at the moment as it goes on. There's a couple of things to like about getting drawn against Mexico. If you're in pot 2 in the Mexico group, you get to stay in Mexico, which I think is a big advantage. So look for that. It's the only one, literally the only slot, I think, that you can stay in the same country as Mexico for 3. So I don't know, maybe Iran will get that. Wink, wink. We'll see. That might help them as well. So I don't know. I think for me, ultimately, Canada is a place of a destination where people want to come and they'll want to play. But I will say that they will be underestimated, and it'll be up to them to show that on the field. But it's so exciting when you look at the pots and you think the chances that Canada have got and the teams that they've got. I think there's a lot to like about them. And Canada has advantages. They've got extra days off than some of the other opponents, particularly for that extra second day. They have another day off there as well. So that'll be something to keep an eye on as well.
Jenko, before you take us home, can I just say something quickly? This feels like we're actually about to have the World Cup. Like, I know, okay, you're in the 500 days, you're at BMO, and it was like, yeah, okay, we still got some time. There's a lot that can happen in 500. But now it actually feels like the next time it gets warm in Canada, we will be hosting a World Cup. I'm like, winter, just come on, speed straight through so we can all get that sun on our nice melanated skin. Let's get it done, right? And then we go for it, baby. I'm getting excited now. KJ, I can get to your house in a jiff. Let me get in your bag. I'll get in your bag, buddy.
Love it. The 2026 FIFA World Cup draw goes on Friday, noon Eastern, 10 Mountain. Join us, and we'll have some information on our coverage on our socials, and we'll keep a keen eye out for KJ in his cummerbund, in his bow tie, waltzing around the Kennedy Center as we learn Canada's path to glory. Thanks for joining us today.